Hi, everybody. Good evening. Thank you for attending this webinar today. We are very privileged to have Mr. Jason Lee. Jason will take you through Trimble SketchUp and Layout, and we will look at the title will be From Design to Documentation. So I think for the next hour or so, just join us and then just learn something from this sharing. Jason, all yours.
Okay, so just open up my camera to say hi.
Hello.
Hello? Hello?
Yes, yes, we can
Okay.
hear you loud and clear.
Okay, sweet. So let's just getting started then. So this session is mainly talking about from SketchUp as a design software and how we actually turn that into a documentation. So let's just kind of like directly jump to this today's menu. Okay, so the session itself is actually a technical session just to walk you guys through about how to develop, manage your SketchUp model, which is normally a design model, into another piece. While you right after you install SketchUp, you will see this layout. So and how to use layout to kind of like, link the model together with the paper space and, get the drawing parts of the documentation to get it started. So in a sense that what we're starting with is actually the philosophy behind, like understanding why we're having this model-driven documentations in the first place. And thereafter, I will try to make this, it's quite technical in a sense. So I will try to use kind of a metaphor form to help you guys to understand, the user interface as well as the user experience. How does it go from there? And thereafter is the practice about preparations and arrangements that within your team. I know that you guys are participating in this competition. And also as an Easter egg, that probably I will be sharing some of the useful insights that can be generated through your design model as well as using other Trimble family of the tools. So let's just get started then. So why this model-driven documentations is getting popular? I believe a lot of you guys have been heard like the term of like BIM, building information modeling, or IDD, like integrated digitalization delivery. So the very fundamental or the very starting point of it is actually documentation has been all those kind of like data, regardless it's a drawing form, which is visualized form, or it's a kind of like schedule or spreadsheet, right? So it's kind of like data. So all this kind of data has been stored in a 3D model. So that model can be used for data-driven analysis. It also can be used for illustration purposes as like renderings or VR nowadays. Also, it can get in the documentations. But what is documentation, in fact? So the first thing everybody mentioned about documentation, maybe the first thing that in your mind jumped out is actually drawings, like the manuals, notes, plans, elevation sections, and details, and illustrations and all that kind of stuff. But however, that also including like schedules, like finishes schedule, equipment schedule, white goods, right? And also about the site plans. Like when we're doing when we initiate a design, we're definitely going to do some like site analysis with certain kind of plans. Nowadays it's more and more 3D instead of 2D, right? But however, for the construction documentation wise, you also need like site stacking, how you actually stack all those kind of materials arriving on the site, and how's the fire escaping plan. So if there is any emergency, how people escape from the space, and also the site offices plan as well. And also there's a lot of other kinds of like documentations that we need to be kind of like chronologically collect, like the RFIs, the request for infos, as well as these correspondences. And also BIM is famous for its kind of like clash detection. I believe that everyone heard this term before. So like pre-con reports and construction schedules and all that kind of stuff. So facility management also requires to have certain data to be put into the model itself. So SketchUp and Layout. These are two different softwares, okay? But while you install SketchUp, you will definitely get Layout as well. So in a metaphor form of description, that SketchUp is more or less like your design space, which is a three-dimensional model space, right? Using the term back in the old days, like in AutoCAD. And Layout is exactly the representation of a paper space. So probably some of to some of you that layout is still a new kind of like things to explore with. But however, just I can just share with you that layout is just simply a paper space, as well as it's a hybrid like Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop plus like mostly like a PowerPoint, so it's very easy to use with. Okay, so to getting this whole thing, because this session's our goal is actually to getting the model to be kind of like documented into a formal, like let's say a drawing, right? So this is our target. So we're starting with the SketchUp UI. I believe most of you guys are familiar with this software because it's been popular over a decade and everyone loves it. Very freestyle design, as well as a lot of extensions, plugins can enable it to do almost like everything. So this is the UI, and we have like entity info, everything when you select on an entity or an object, right? You will see these kind of things to refresh and also revealing a lot of like informations. And there is another thing which we have renamed the old panel name layer into tags since I remember it's since 2020. All right, because we changed the name because there is certain reasons I'll explain later. And also there are scenes. So scenes is more like setting up different views. It can be parallel projection views, like standard elevation, standard sections, and as well as plans. Also, it can store like 3D views, right? Like everyone use it, like showing different angle of your design. And there's one more thing that is probably not so many people know about it. It's called outliner. It's actually a tree structure of the model, like folders and in a folder form. So first thing first, we need to take a look at this entity info in the first place. All right. So once you select any of the entities, regardless it's a component, well, component is equal to like your CAD like blocks. So they have certain definitions attached to it to define an object, which is going to be repetitively used in your model space. All right. So this entity info shows at least a few things, live quantity in the whole model space. Like for instance, I'm selecting a chair here, right? So you will automatically pop up saying that there are 31, this same definition of chairs that in this model space. And here's a thumbnail of the material that has been attached to this component, all right, attached to this instance. And there are entity controls like visibility, locket, or casting or receiving shadows, but this is not the major stuff that we're going to talk about today. And on the right-hand side, if you have a look, you will see this tag, right? It's tag. Well, you can understand it as layers before. And there is an instance, which is can be different from like components to components. And definition has to be very, very unique in the model space. So for instance, if I have this definition in around well chair, right? So this definition of this chair, it has to be unique in the whole model context. Okay, so if let's say I have this definition, exactly the same text as this, then it's going to be unique definition inside this model. All right, so that's component. It's very similar to your AutoCAD blocks. And actually, if you click on here, that it will give you a little bit default advanced attributes like price and size and URL, owners and status, right? So there are a few information you can attach to the components as well. And here's a type. So this type we're going to talk about later when we're talking about BIM, all right? So in here, for today's session, that the most important thing for you to remember is you need to watch out for the materials, for the tag, for the instance value, as well as for definition. All right, so let's just move on. And next one in the SketchUp, we need to take care of these tags, right? So the tags, it looks like very much like a layer panel. It very much look like a layer panel. But the reason why we name it as tag, because tagging is a model term. And layer is supposed to be a 2D like paper space term. So it's actually you're literally tagging things in SketchUp in your model space to identify like the classifications of the stuff and also to separate them out as in different categories of things, because that's the basis of building information modeling, to classify as well as to categorize things, right? So in here, that the most important thing is definitely add a tag group, because you have like, let's say, annotations or base building or design. as well as you can control individual or group visibilities right here. And also there will be a lot of tags, right? Because we have, let's say, like structural columns, we have BIMs, we have like foundations, superstructure. So there's not really a one for all principle for everyone to assign it, but however, you can have your own based on your design, right? So the tag search is actually quite instant. So if you type some certain keywords, you just prompt up right away. So this is a tag in SketchUp in the model space, all right? And how to do that to make a model view, which is a scene, to layout, it's pretty straightforward. You save this model first, and you go to File. You have Send to Layout, as I'm showing on the video. I guess that everyone can see the video, right? So basically, what you do is you have a scene setting in the top view of your model, like what I have on my screen, and you just go to in SketchUp. You just go to File, Send to Layout, and it will prompt up layout automatically, and just select a paper size, and it just go in as a viewport, okay, like AutoCAD's viewport. And if we take a closer look to it, like I'm doing some adjustments right here in the layout, the SketchUp model panel, right? So it's right here. So basically there are 8 points, I could say, but they are not always like everything is very, very important. We just go through them real quick. So the first thing is actually in the number 1, which is the default line weight. The line weight. So normally we set it 0.1 point. Sometimes, there are finer line weights like differ from region to region, right? So, but by default, it actually is 0.1. And thereafter, there is a render mode, which has vector, has hybrid, also have raster. So I'll explain that later. And the viewport view, like for instance, right here, I'm showing a plan, right? So it's definitely set to top. And also, definitely, it has to be isometric, right? And also, you can take these viewports scale to a standardized one, let's say 1 to 100 millimeter, or 1 to 500 millimeter, it doesn't really matter. And there is a lock of the viewport, which in SketchUp, in the layout language, it calls preserve scale on resize. It's a little bit long, I know. And also using the SketchUp styles that you can control, how does it look like, right? It has colors, or it has pure lines, and also displaying the background, is it going to be transparent with the scene, or is it not? And there is an individual tag settings. So all these tags is going to be super familiar as you just now saw them before, right? So basically that all these preferable settings that I normally use, I would say, like if let's say you're first time into this, so I will set to like 0.1, vector and hybrid either, and I will always preserve the scale check, all right, and change it to a nice scale. And I have some styles in SketchUp as well, just for the line drawing purposes. And I always uncheck the backgrounds, so it always shows as like transparent. And also after I will control all these kind of like visibilities of the SketchUp tags, and to make it as a template. Okay, sounds a little bit complicated, but it doesn't matter. Let's just go through one by one. So for this setting, that the vector and hybrid. So I mean, generically in a computational like visualization terms, it's pretty technical. The vector you can imagine as Adobe Illustrator. So when you zoom all the way, and end up, you will always see the clear line, right? Because they are vector based. And for raster, you just think it as Photoshop. So when you zoom in until the end, the base unit for it is actually per pixel, right? But however, that in layout, there is a little bit difference in the efficiency. So if it's a vector rendered viewport like this, right? Normally, it will kind of respond a little bit laggy, I could say, or slower slightly. And so when we editing any of the drawing, like the viewports, we primarily use the raster mode to quickly done the editing. And thereafter, before we export, we tune it back to vector to see the like real line weights. So after you've done this, then if it's vectorized, then it's exactly the same as AutoCAD or Revit. It doesn't have any differences. And also this preserve scale on resize basically is lock the viewports. As you can see, if I check the box, then whenever I adjust the viewport, that you will always lock down to that kind of position. So it won't rescale the whole viewport contents. All right. So next one is about set as a template. So for the first time, very first time for your layout. So we have some preset pages, right? Like per piece per paper. So let's say like layout plan, or demolition plan, structural column plans. So every plan, right? You will have different visibility of the tags, and only in layout that each of these SketchUp tags will have additional properties that you can add onto it. You can set them as a template. Like for instance, you can change your line types. They're called dashes in SketchUp, and you can set that particular tag's color, as well as you can change the line scale, as well as you can precisely control the edge wave. All right. So generically, that's very similar, like tweaking a viewport setting or the layer display properties in AutoCAD's like paper space, right? It's more or less like that plot manager, if you remember in CAD. And layer, so layer is a particular term tied up with the paper space. It's a drawing term, right? So it's only residing in layout. In SketchUp, we change it to tag. So this is one of the main reasons. Okay, so this layer panels in layout is pretty similar acting as all the Adobe products like Illustrator or let's say Photoshop. So anything in the layer sequence, right? So anything that is on top, it will always be on top. Okay, and anything lower, it definitely goes below, goes sent to back. You know, like the very bottom of that, kind of like stacking different layers on a single paper. So on here that you also can have different kind of like layers to control different kind of things, all right? And one interesting thing is actually each layer has 3 buttons, visibility, lock, and the last button is actually duplicated on pages. So for instance, some of the things that we always love to kind of like to be duplicated, the same viewport to be applicable and visible on all the pages. Like for instance, for an interior design job, that you definitely every single plan, what you want to see is a base plan, right? Like a base building or the floor plan. So the floor plan normally will be duplicated to every page. Then for the rest, we can control one by another to differentiate the contents on each of the pages. So similar to AutoCAD and all the other drawing making software, brick scale, anything. So it also has a scrapbook. So the scrapbook is basically a pre-made like symbols and also like styles of the tags and annotations. I'll provide some resource after this lecture as well. So basically, it just shows as a dialog, and you can drag and drop any of these kind of elements. So for us, I mean, in a real practice, that every company will have their own drawing standards. So they have standardized symbols, right, and also standardized text size. So if your team shares the same scrapbook file, that means that everyone, however you drag and you change the contents, is always going to be, universal styles. So this is about scrapbook itself. And next is about auto snap dimensions. Just now we talked about like the viewports has vector, right? Like Illustrator, or raster looks like pixelized, same as Photoshop. It doesn't really matter in layout as in, except for the output qualities, right? Vectorize or rasterize. So look sharper or not. So in layout, every SketchUp components or elements that its ending point, middle point, it's always being traced. So like here, if I'm trying to kind of a dimensioning this, this is actually a door frame, one side of the door frame. So because I draw in SketchUp, it's exactly 50 millimeters wide. So when I drag that in layout, it's going to be exactly 50 millimeters shown. All right. So the dimensions, however, is reflecting your model value. So it's exactly the same as the model. And about annotations. So just now we actually had a look at this entity info. So if you remember this definition, which I said probably a couple of times, saying that it's unique in SketchUp. So there's a lot of occasions that when we're doing documentations, we need to kind of like either address the code of the object. Let's say this chair maybe C01, or maybe we need to drag out definition object of this chair. So I want to kind of annotate, literal annotation out that, this is this chair particularly. So in layout, if let's say this thing shown in a SketchUp viewport, and you click on it, you drag it out, and you will see this bracket, component definitions. There's a couple of things that you can select, like you can select instance definition, so you can smartly identify whatever is residing in the SketchUp model itself and just showing as a paper space annotation, right? So if you name it right in a SketchUp, then you will have it definitely right in layout. So that's very much, like fundamental of BIM as well. So we're all facing different kind of like changes of design, right? We have revision 1, 2, and also we have a final version, final version. I always love that. So whenever time that we change the design, that all these views, because the model reference has been changed, right? All you need to do is just simply either update the model or relink to a new model. So this viewport will remain exactly the same as what you have done before. And if there is any size changes, right? So in layout, you will be automatically reflects with a light red transparent background. So it's very easy for us, like for seniors, to pick out, whatever annotation is wrong, because I just need to relink the model, right? Relink to the latest model, and I just need to flip through each of the pages and just trying to find this red backgrounds of on my annotations. So if this object has changed the size, you will definitely have a red shade. So that's easier for me, especially for myself, to kind of like check overall, ensure everything's right. And because that layout is 100% reflecting whatever you have done in SketchUp, the model itself, so it's actually a 2D representation to your 3D model, exact. And again, so tag is a modeling term to classify stuff. Like for instance, I have this, let's say the customized desk here. So it's actually belongs to interior design join array. It has a code in the instance phase. And thereafter, it has a unique definition, okay? Like medium room desk, medium or whatsoever. If I have done so correctly in my model space, all my SketchUp tags, okay? In SketchUp, I only care about tagging things. I don't really care about how they actually look like in each kind of a line type, what's going to be the line weight, I don't care, or even the line scales. But however, once I have done that model, and all this kind of data, all these kind of like visibilities, you can further control it in your layout, okay? As long as this the model showing in the viewport is exactly what you have done before, okay? So by doing so, that you can further control each viewport's visibility, how the layer look like, So that's basically a more kind of like reasonable workflow, because in models, we don't really care about how the line looks. We only care about the object. Is it correct, right? Is it placement is correct? Is it size is correct? But however, when getting into the paper space, which is architectural language reflections, right? So you got to reflect through the layer line widths, line types, line colors, and all that kind of properties. So all the additional settings, you only need to do it in layout. Once, save it as a template. Next time, just reload the model, all right? And the model, the viewport layers, as I just now mentioned, you can individually set them and just save as a template. So next time, you just relink the model. Everything will be, all this kind of expanded properties will be all saved with the layout file itself, right? So you don't need to change anything. You just need to tweak it for the first time ever. Then thereafter, you're done. Every time, just relink the model, and you always get it up to date. So the drawings, no need to like going back to your CAD and draw the things again, but you just need to change the model and update the model reference, and there you go, right? So just want to recap how we actually do this. Number one, you model as usual. Everyone uses SketchUp to do design. Draw them accurately, okay? And most important thing, you tag them according to a particular tagging system. Thereafter, save the file, send to layout. And then layout will prompt up asking you what's going to be the paper size and everything, and give you a viewport, right? So you just set up the SketchUp model panel with all the correct things for the first time. And thereafter, you have, let's say, the first page done. You just simply duplicate all the pages and just changing the visibility on each of the pages, starting to annotate them, all right? Same as usual. The annotation actually have some certain kind of like automation plugin have been done or being working on. So, but you can actually Google it. There's a couple of them. And also that if let's say you have this is like a scrapbook contents that I prepared for you guys. So basically what you can do is, for instance, I have different kind of style of these dimensions, right? What you can do is you can just use the matching tool. It's the paint bucket in a layout. And what you do is you have a correct dimension style set up. Then you just pick it up and you can drop it on multiple different kind of like dimensions, and it will all be universalized. Okay, so quickly you can do that, very quick. So this is the resource that I actually prepared for you guys, just to kind of help you guys to getting a head start. And I know until here, a lot of people may wondering like, how can I, setting up a system like a tagging system plus a layout template? That's pretty difficult, right? So actually, the most easiest way is just you have a CAD, right? And whatever previously you're working with, which is a successful example, you just import the CAD, and all those kind of layers and information will be brought into SketchUp, all right? From importing definitely from the AutoCAD model space. And in the layout, also the same. If you have a successful or like a preset CAD title block or something, right? You can just simply insert a DWG file, and you will get your title block right away, like on particular pages. All right. So if you have done that, then you have done the fully transformation from 2D pure 2D AutoCAD to a 3D SketchUp plus a 2D layout. So that's actually how you're getting two things connected. I believe this is pretty straightforward though. Yeah. So how does this actually relate to BIM? I mean, we have talking about like, the very beginning of why we're having this BIM or even BIM appears is because that we have this struggle before in our industry that the 3D model used for rendering purposes, illustrations, right? Virtual tools, which is not complying or not exactly the same as the 2D CAD drawing. So it's two different pieces of software, right? And the initiation of the BIM is actually we want to use model to drive the rest, right? Regardless it's a 2D documentation or it's a 3D model or it's a 4D like virtual design construction or 5D quantifications and all that. So everything has been stored in a 3D format, and thereafter the 2D is just deriving a 2D documentation from the 3D model, right? So the BIM thing is quite interesting because nowadays in our industry that there's a lot of people using Autodesk Revit particularly for architecture, and for structure there's a lot of people using Trimble SketchUp, and for interior design most of the people is using like SketchUp, right? And however that the clients the market demands is always saying that we got to do the BIM, but what is BIM for real? So if you have seen this logo before for Building Smart Institute, so they're actually the ones who manage the international protocols. So for a BIM object, in a micro way, that it definitely generates software when you're creating any of the geometry, let's say a chair, it has the coordinates, you have positive length, width, and depths, like this kind of like geometry information. And also you will be able to kind of like inject or input some of the project-based data, like who manufactured this, right? Where's the warranty files, and when does it deliver onto the site, and all that kind of stuff. So it's chronological data that from the project was being designed until delivery. And also you will have a classification schema. So this is like a protocol across multiple different BIM softwares, Revit or Navisworks or EchoSim or Connect, or Trimble Connect or Tekla. So it's all universalized. As in Singapore, we're very proud that we have our BCA SG schema that built into the same language. So that's basically, classification, standardize every category of things and what kind of like attributes or information you must fill it in, right, for submission purposes. And there are international protocols. have like this kind of like technical terms and IFC, MVD, the BCF, Beam Collaboration Format, or ISO standard, and there are level developments consciousness about like 100, 200, 300, 350. It's basically revealing there is a lot of common sense in this community. And definitely the most important thing that I feel for BIM is actually it has a very neutral model format for IFC. So IFC is importable in SketchUp, it's importable to Revit, it's also importable to AutoCAD, right? So BIM software is a very generic term of a particular software that can do this. So there's a lot of software implementations under the same Building Smart wings. So in SketchUp, by default, in the 2021 version of the SketchUp and above, you will have the older IFC 2x3, and also you will have the latest IFC 4. And to change your model, because your model is purely, let's say, in SketchUp or in Revit, right? You need to have other BIM software to collaborate, because like architects may be using Revit, interior may be using like SketchUp, and structural may be using Tekla, right? Everyone has preference softwares. But how to make each of those creations to kind of communicate or work or be able to integrate together, you got to have an IFC, right? So IFC is quite similar like a PDF. So you using Word, you can create a file, but you can save it as a PDF, right? So, and also using like Apple Pages, you can create a PDF. Using Photoshop, you can create a PDF. So PDF is kind of like neutral format. So in the BIM world, the IFC is just like the PDF, which is very commonly used. And back to SketchUp, that after we loaded in that classification file, the schema file, we're coming back again in the entity info, you will see the bottom, that type, right? So if in the type, once you expand it, you will see like IFC 2x3. Here is demonstrating because this project was quite old. So 2x3. And you will see if I search furniture, it will come out furniture standard, furniture type, right? And furniture element type. So after I assign this thing as a furniture, and I go through right click on this particular symbol, or actually it's a three-dimensional object, it just looks like that. You go to dynamic components, component options. This is all default with the SketchUp Pro. What you will get is you will get additional properties which has been globally understood from every institutions, okay, under this IFC's wing. So you will see that like this upper chair that it has like, I just give you an example, like assembly place, right? So where does this chair being assembled? It's actually in the factory, right? It's not on site. And also you will have some generic things like global ID, the name, and also the tag itself. So similar, if let's say I change this one to another one, which is just like a joinery, a customized furniture, that you will have similar set of like attributes that being pre-built within this component. And it will be able to type in a lot of things, right? Like where does just now that chair is assembled in the factory, but this one is actually assembled on site because it's a millwork, it's a joinery item, right? It has a label name. It has a GUID, the global ID as well. So everything is unique. So by searching this number, you can easily locate where this counter is in the model as well. So this is generically about how you can expand or further develop your SketchUp design model into a full-fledged BIM model, which is able to communicate with other BIM softwares. The reason why I'm talking about all this is just because, you know, I personally feel I've been using SketchUp for a lot of years, but in the past 7 years that we have developed a lot of things, simply because that, you know, designers, architects, we love SketchUp to do things, to do design actually, right? It's more like a visualization driven with less, or I could say with least restrictions on creating geometries and designs. So all this data that just now you have seen on the screen that is recognizable from SketchUp, you feel it in SketchUp, but you can read that in Revit. And also you can read that in AutoCAD or Tekla. It doesn't really matter. As long as it's loading the share, I mean, every software is loading the same SketchUp, the same IFC schema, it will be recognizable. So, so that's basically about the SketchUp and Layout part today. And I want to share something extra because I saw the theme this year is pretty interesting, that it's a more sustainable approach on the design. So there's a new thing called PreDesign in the suite of SketchUp and Trimble family. By simply typing in a geolocation, you'll be able to get a lot of information. It's called PreDesign, right? So it's preliminary design information, actually, giving you a lot of analysis. So based on the location, exact location of your proposed site, they will be able to understand the indoor-outdoor climate. In, let's say this one is in Singapore because our office is located at Shenton Way right now. So also you will be able to know like the glazing ratio, what's going to be the correct glazing ratio, as well as what kind of glass that you're supposed to use. I believe some of you guys may already staring at this triple glaze low E, right? So low E is pretty technical term though. So also you will be able to get this shading information, right? And getting certain suggestions on different types of like building elevation selections, right? Like shading fins, or you want to have an egg crate, right? On different orientation, or the 8 orientations. So you can have all these kind of studies right away by simply inputting a location, right? And how does the skylight can be utilized, and how's your outdoor space is going to interact with the indoor space, right? Like the raining across the year, and also is it really the outdoor space that you design has been can be kind of like used throughout the year, right? So this is the PreDesign. And this one is actually free as long as you just register a Trimble account, you will get this, right? It will help a lot as long as we have realized that it helps a lot because like, for instance, I'm in Singapore, I'm working on a job in Vancouver, so I don't know what's going to be the local weather look like or this kind of like, you know, the nature's parameters around the site. And I don't have time to get people to literally, you know, walk on a site every day and collect the data. But here, everything has been analyzed. And also another thing which is I personally feel is very close. I mean, it's very tightly connected with the sustainability because how we actually use the space or how we actually design the building itself, it got to be highly utilized on like natural metrics, for instance, like sunlights, right? And also like the wind directions and all that kind of stuff. So to visualize and to solve certain problems and to kind of like test and run, right? So this is one of job in Shanghai. So we actually work with a quite famous architect. I rather don't mention the names. So they actually propose, as you can see right here, there are 3 white rectangles, right? So circle it is actually have a B1, B2, and B3, the different levels in the basement. So the B2 is actually their like employees' canteens and all that. So they actually proposed saying that let's opening a hole right here to across all the floors, the basement floors, to get the sunlight in. But in fact, that we actually built that model and just simply drop into the Sefaira and simulate that. Then sadly, we'll understand, you know, on the basement one, on the B1 that actually has a lot of sunlights, still got sunlights, but from B2 onwards, that the sunlight attenuates until 0. So there is no, even we open up that hole on the slab, that has nothing to come in, right? Another case is actually they have a lobby, which, you know, this job they have a lot of like office towers on top and a shopping mall below. So this area showing as glazing. So this area is actually their office towers lobby, and the owner mentioned saying that they want to utilize the sunlights, right? They don't want to use artificial lighting for the lobby. That's not looking nice generically, and also not sustainable. So how big of this area that we create, the openings, is gonna have the most effective sunlights that actually penetrating through the glazing, the skylights to this lobby. So we actually test and run that in SketchUp with Sefaira. So like right here, this size showing as glazing is exactly the best size, most cost-effective size that the sunlight penetration will be fully cover the whole lobby on the ground. Right, so this is some of the uses that I feel that probably it's going to be helpful that for you guys to explore and to kind of like seeking for solutions and giving different options, find the best design options to solve that problem. All right, so after all, to conclude everything, you guys are our future architects and designers. All the tools is meant to support you, okay, to make you more efficient. So the mainstream shouldn't be tool itself, but the people who use that tool, all right? So I want you guys to literally open up your mind and think about, the possibilities and to explore it and to focus more and spend more time on design and solving problems. Don't spend too much time on figuring out the softwares, because the software is supposed to be easy, all right? And previously that I have talked in a BCA's digitalization group community that I share one of the extension that we made last year. As now Singapore is we're getting better and better, I guess. So the social distancing based planning is a big problem. So brutal facts that in our industry last year, a lot of people is actually dimensioning based on, let's say, a 1 meter or 2 meter in an office space, trying to locate that which sits is going to be removed, which sits is actually usable. So we actually made a little bit more algorithm to kind of like make it super fast. So this video is not really, it's not accelerated, it's just original. So there are like 200 plus sits, but if let's say I want to get a 6 foot social distancing, it immediate feedback to me like, green and red. So which the green ones is going to be occupiable. The red one is not usable. I need to remove them. So I guess that probably that one, because a sustainable approach is also in conjunction with wellness considerations, I think that probably this tool may be helpful to you guys as well. But this whole thing is actually a BIM-based computation. So it's grasp all these chairs, like we call it work nodes. So the center point of that work nodes, and you just do automatic computation within the selected zone and give you a result. All right. So that's basically about today. I prepare a few of the resources, like just now you have seen like title blocks in layout, the SketchUp styles that shows, the perfect drawing, the line drawing, that kind of like look, as well as the Scrapbook contains a lot of like standardized dimension styles, annotation styles, and all that, and even the schedule formats. You guys can feel free to just scan the QR code and save that kind of a web page to download it. Also, if you want to have a look at a PreDesign, there is a tutorial. And also Trimble themselves have a learnsketchup.com. So basically it has an official channel to learn, start to learn layout, how to use it, and how to make it as an extensive, useful paper space for your SketchUp design models. So that's all for today. And Okela, any questions?
Thank you, Jason, for that very insightful sharing.
Thanks.
I was quite intrigued with the SMM, the social distancing thing, that you can actually, you could assign which seats go to when in your last few slides, which I saw. It's quite good. Yeah.
So if you guys wanted to have a further read of the story or download it, here's the QR code. You can scan it and just store it. And so far that Moser, as in Moser, that we meant to help all our industry, like so it's actually free of charge, and we're actually encouraging people to using it just to save the time, because save time, save lives. That's the real value for our architects nowadays. Yep.
Right. You mentioned about the Sefaira. Is that a plugin also?
Yes, it's actually a web app. So it engages, like you can run it on the web, which is a full version, and it also is it has plugins for SketchUp and Revit as well. So it's pretty fast and pretty simple. You just need to build a simple architectural massing model and change the different entities into preset types, like let's say fixed glazing or pre-built glazing, roof or slab, right? And you can get the visualization pretty fast. And most important thing, I think this is a help that can test and try a lot of different options, right, to find the best one. Yep.
Okay. It will give you a lot of data as well, I assume, because right now it's actually color coded and all. Right? Yeah.
So if you want to export the data sheet of it, it's available. It's on a full version of that web. So this one, what I'm showing right here is actually the screenshots, and from the SketchUp plugin. So when it loads up in SketchUp, it looks like this. But there is a gigantic version. So if you take a look at it here, it has a upload to Sefaira, right? So it actually has a full version. So you can tweak further, like even like the thermal transmittance values, the ETTV or RETV on there, and to get like hatchback and everything. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah. Just wondering if anyone has any questions that love to answer.
Yeah. Please feel free to ask Jason on any questions that you have.
Our students are pretty shy nowadays.
I guess among our mates also, we do have industry practitioners as well. Among our mates, but I think mostly mostly students, I guess.
Yeah.
Hi, Jason. Yeah, I'm Moonway from DG. Something to ask about the visual programming part. Actually, what's your recommendation? I mean, to embark on this visual programming for this Trimble SketchUp.
The visual programming part, I remember that last time there was, so that one, I think for the visual programming part, I haven't released yet. It's the material that last time we have talked about. They haven't released the parametric visual programming extension.
So it's still work in progress, but there are such a workshop.
Actually, last time that Tom he shared about that, right, in the IDD webinar. But the thing is that Trimble yet to decide when to publish it. I mean, it's ready, but the thing is when exactly they're going to publish it. Yeah. So that's actually for everyone's knowledge that just Wei is talking about is the parametric visual programming platform, similar like Grasshopper attached to Rhino. So SketchUp is gonna have a SketchUp version of Grasshopper soon. So not sure when they are gonna release it, but definitely it's gonna be coming out as an extension to mostly of the Trimble, most of the Trimble products. Yeah.
Thank you for the heads up. Thank you.
Thank you. No more questions?
Well, since this session is recorded, it will be hosted under two websites. One is the competition website, and the other one is the computation space, where I think both students and industry practitioners can actually access them.
Sure. Yeah. That's great. I mean, love to share it because this possibly is one of the easiest way to just get the whole thing done, right? Instead of like jumping back or forth or kind of like suffering, like setting up the families. I'm just too lazy to set up all the families. But in the real world the real practice that when you're doing a real project that you definitely don't have that time to kind of like setting up everything properly before you can get that design, right? So it's more a design driven process that you can still get also the documentations and everything. It's just and it's pretty directly seamlessly connected to your design model as well. Yeah.
Yes, Jason, I have something more to ask. Is the collaboration with this SketchUp with other platforms, for instance, the VR, AR. So what's your view towards the Unity or the Unreal Game Engine? So which one is actually more preferable, or I don't know, what's your input, what's your view on this one?
Okay, so for VR and AR, I think for particular for the VR, Unity is quite strong, but Unreal Engine is also quite strong. Okay, and in fact, that if we're talking about like the VR touring with lower spec of the computers, right, like the running from the local machines, right, then probably Enscape is actually doing quite a lot of jobs as well. So I feel that there's no really like personal preferences among three of them. All are great stuff. But to map out the difficulties to learn that Enscape is definitely the easiest. Then followed by the UE, the Unreal Engine. Then Unity, because of the programming part, I'm personally not very good at program for the Unity part. So in my personal view, that I would put like Unity is quite difficult for me. Yeah, but for Unreal and Enscape, I think everybody can pick it up real quick because it's pretty direct, right? And Unreal is a little bit tricky, but there is loads of like resources exists on the YouTube. You can just simply search like UE4, UE5, like documentations and how to operate it. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for your input.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any more from the floor?
Yeah, and one more thing I would like to suggest to you all, since that you are attending this year's competition, please do read the BCA Green Mark, like residential, the NRB or the residential building law, NRB or RB, then plus with the healthier workplace, that one, the HW. So if you read all this, that you will find a lot of like guidelines or pre-structure that has been well organized by BCA for all the practitioners in Singapore. And it's pretty in a leading space that worldwide, because I personally have all these kind of credentials. I do this kind of certifications and studies and research a lot, and met up with a lot of bright minds already on sustainability and wellness. But so far, that I think I personally would recommend that since that you are in Singapore, that you should be looking into a tropical climate-based rating system, so that it will help you to kind of like quickly build up, like the structure in your mind about how the sustainability should be mapped out, like branching out gradually. So this will be one of my suggestions. And again, I don't feel that like the architects and designers should be focusing too much on the like software itself, because you will come across a lot of problems in your career. And the key thing is how to solve those kind of problems. It's about the thinking process and to look for the correct tools. And then, based on you found a bunch of like correct tools, right? Then you can simplify it and make it the most efficient for yourself or for your team. So this is it's a continuous process. I think this may be helpful. Yeah. And I can't hope everyone to win this year competition, right? But I hope that you guys will learn a lot like during the process. Yeah.
Good tip. Thanks for the encouragement.
If no more, then that's gonna be today.
Okay, so I think we will wrap up today's session. Thank you, Jason Lee, again for your sharing. I am sure it will benefit a lot of everyone who actually is here now, or even if they do not have the chance to attend this, they will actually look at your recording on YouTube. Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, Jason. Yep.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, thanks
everyone. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Good evening. Bye-bye.
Evening. Bye.